So here we go. Second attempt at the live post-game feed. Purdue has upset the Ohio State Buckeyes, the number 15 Ohio State Buckeyes, 67-65. And big reason, of course, was the massive three-pointer by Jaden Ivey. About 5 minutes into the second half, I tweeted out that Ivey should be looking to drive because he doesn't have the three-pointer yet. And I'm getting a hard time for that on Twitter. And I think that's fair because Ivey made the play. Can't argue with that. But I will say this. If you look at a couple things, number one, if you know basketball, which I assume you do since you're tuning into a Boiled Sports live feed and you follow us on Twitter, I assume you're one of the smart ones out there. If you know basketball, you know that an 18% three-point shooter is probably not the guy you want shooting the three. You really don't want that guy looking for his three as his first option. That's really the big thing. And Ivey is so lethal when he drives. So good on the drive that, I didn't get to see the post-game interview yet from Ivey because I was trying to set up this live feed. And I hear it's awesome. I can't wait to watch it. Sounds like he was super emotional. That's excellent. I think he cares a lot. I think that's been obvious. You know, if you heard from Newbert the other night, Ivey was working on his three-point shot after the Penn State win in Mackey for like an hour. He did a full workout for an hour after the game, and paid off almost immediately in the form of Purdue getting their first win over a ranked foe on the road since 2012. I found that incredible. Generally, I find television producers kind of hit you with the same drivel over and over when you're watching a game online on TV, and that was a surprise to me. Just because think about all the great Purdue teams that have played in the last 9 years.
There's a lot to manage in life right now.
And that was an autoplay on ESPN.com, just kind of blaring at me. But let's look at some of the stats. I haven't looked at these yet. This is me attempting this on the fly. The minutes aren't posted yet on ESPN, but it looks like Trey led all scorers with 16 points in spite of the fact that he was in such foul trouble so early in the first half. 16 points, 7 rebounds, an assist, a steal, 2 turnovers. One maybe the biggest stat that we should talk about is the fact that Purdue only had 2 turnovers in the second half. There's a lot of things that are interesting if you look at the box score. Neither team could shoot free throws. That's interesting. Purdue was 58%, went 10 from 17, 10 for 17 from the stripe, and Ohio State edges them out, going 11 for 17, 64%, 65% almost. I mean, there are a lot of things that are interesting to me. I mean, Ohio State had some guys with a hot hand, obviously. Washington was torching Purdue for much of the first half and even bled into the second half. He finished with 21 points, 6 assists. Hunter was doing his best to dog him, but it seems like Purdue, especially early, didn't seem to get the memo that Washington could bomb. How you doing, Max? Thanks for tuning in. Let's see. Damon asked, did you see the stat during the game that the last 3 times Purdue won at Ohio State ended up winning the Big Ten? Well, that's super interesting. So that Damon asked, did you see that the last 3 times Purdue has won at Ohio State, they end up winning the Big Ten? I think Purdue right now is 2 games back behind Iowa. Iowa, I think, has 1 conference loss. I might be wrong, but I think that's true. And Purdue is playing good basketball. There's no doubt. They've now won 4 straight. That's their longest winning streak of the season. Not that it matters to you all that much, I don't think. But the bigger thing that I'm seeing, and I said this in my quick cast today, is that they're not giving up 12 to 15-minute lapses where they're just not playing basketball, right? Even that first half, they weren't playing well, and it felt like Purdue should have been down by more, but they just kept fighting and playing hard. And I think that's what Painter's been waiting and probably selling to the guys, the idea that if you don't hit your shots, you got to keep playing hard because some days you don't hit your shots. Case in point, of course, Brandon Newman Went 0 for, he was 0 for 2 from the field. No points, no rebounds, no assists, 1 steal on the day. I still don't know how many minutes he played because it's not posted yet on ESPN.com. Another really interesting thing that happened in the game was Sasha Stefanovic coming up with 15 points. He's always good from free throw line. He was 4 for 4 today. He was only 1 for 5 from 3. And that's kind of the interesting thing is that Sasha, you think of his strength, of course, is shooting the 3 ball. Didn't have the 3 going, but he kept driving. He kept going to the hoop because Ohio State was sagging off him so badly. Or pardon me, Ohio State was trying to defend the 3, and so giving him space, and he put the ball on the floor. There was one drive specifically going left to right in the second half where they came out to close him out. He got him in the air, and he went by. Then he beat the second man and took the ball hard to the rack. There was no third help dropping down for him. But he looked like a completely different player than I think what we've become accustomed to. Awesome to see. Of course, Ivey, the player of the game, finishes with 15 points. And here's the thing. He was 2 for 6 from 3. He had one of the biggest three-pointers we can remember, right? I mean, they're obviously versus Tennessee. I think Klein had a huge 3. I think Edwards, of course, had a couple big ones. But beating a ranked team on the road with a three-pointer is a big-time play. I'm not going to discount that at all. But the other thing, if you probably saw this, Painter had drawn up a play for Ivey to drive, and Travion Williams was going to set a pick, which he did, and then I think Travion was going to roll to the basket, maybe get a putback, or if he got the opportunity to shoot it himself, and Ivey could dump it off to him. But the interesting thing about it is Ivey is getting that call, right? It already says a lot about what Painter thinks about this guy. This is pretty cool stuff. I mean, Painter had a pretty high opinion of Carson as a freshman, and Painter clearly has a high opinion of Jaden Ivey already. So, to review, Purdue has improved to 11-5. They're now 6-3 in conference. They're in great shape. I think many people, many bracketologists think Purdue needs to go 500 in conference to get to the tournament. And with that win, I think you can start kind of shifting your eyes from getting to the tournament to trying to improve seeding. Sure, they've got 2 ranked opponents next. You got Michigan, who's an absolute mother, and then Minnesota, who's been playing well, and they kind of they've beaten some teams who didn't see them coming. But Minnesota and Michigan are both good. They've been consistent all season. They snuck up on a lot of the league because they didn't get the early season ranking that a lot of the Big Ten teams did. I mean, for instance, I'm watching the Illinois-Penn State game right now. Looks like a little fight almost broke out on a rebound. Really stupid play by an Illinois forward. He just kept driving a guy after the play was dead, and he should probably get tech. But anyway, it's a sidebar. If you know me well, you know I'm the king of the sidebar. So let's see. A couple more questions. Let's see. The choice to even put the ball in Ivey's hands there was surprising. Yeah, I agree. That's Boiler MCD. Boiler McD. McDonald's. Sounds good. But yeah, I agree. I just said that. I think that's a huge deal. That's a big sign of trust for Painter. Moving screen, Ohio State right at the end looked dirty. Could be wrong. Max said that. I didn't see that screen, honestly, so I don't know what you're talking about. Sorry, Max. Criddle, how much more mature this team seems, how much older than they seem than last year's. That is a great point. That was Robert Rainey, who said that. That's a great point. Painter teams have this tendency in the last 5-10 years to start off the season kind of rough, kind of slowly, and then in the beginning of January start showing some maturity, start aging, start buying into the defensive system that Painter has, right? Wheeler's defense was huge at the end. Seth Harder says Wheeler's defense at the end was awesome. It was a very smart play to foul and take away Ohio State's ability to shoot the 3. Very, very smart play. And they were just in, I don't even think they were in the bonus. So that was a huge play. It's a very smart play. But I said this on Twitter. this team's maturity is coming a little bit later. So you got the second or third week of January. For your reference, Purdue fans, Penn State and Illinois almost just had another fight. That's about 2 fights in about 2 minutes of game time. Anyway, Penn State's coach, I don't know if you guys saw this, got a $10,000 fine for his behavior towards the officials during the Purdue game, not because of his yelling on the court, but because he chased the officials up the tunnel and continued to yell at them and curse at them. You probably all heard him if you saw that game on TV. Thanks to everybody for tuning in, by the way. Appreciate it. It was, let's see. Yeah, Andrea Stevenson says, I didn't think he could have possibly drawn it up for him taking that three. Thank goodness he made it. And you're right, Andrea. He didn't draw it up. Painter did not draw up a three for Jaden, but Jaden made a huge shot. And if you look at Jaden's footwork on that play, that's the thing that may be even more noteworthy. That's a big-time step back. That's one that he's been watching a lot of NBA players, great athletes, guys that are really, really kind of special. The ability to step back, kind of that jump leapfrog back, is a very difficult play to make. It's probably not one that is prescribed. It's not one that I think any of Purdue's coaching staff would have suggested for Jaden to take, but he's been working on it clearly, and he made the shot. I will stick by this statement that is not a smart basketball play, especially when you're as good on the drive as Ivey. And I'll go the next step. If Ivey would have driven, my guess is he would have gotten to the hoop because he's so good at getting the hoop, even with contact. He probably would have drawn some contact. Who knows if he got in the whistle? We know how that goes. But I think he would have gotten to the hoop. So great play by Ivey. I'm not discounting any of that. Great play. But I would always side, especially with a freshman, that he should probably listen to the coach. I'm one of the people that I think Painter's earned a lot of trust, especially in the last few years, because he's been so open to changing his system and changing his methodology as his athletes have changed, as these players have kind of changed their way. He doesn't give guys the red light to shoot threes. He wants them to shoot threes if it's within the flow of the game, and it's a smart play. I think what he'll tell Jaden is great shot, nice big-time play, but let's go the way it's drawn up first, because the play really didn't break down on the drive if you look at it. Yes, Derek, if you go back on this after I hang up here and after I end this live feed, I talk about Sasha's becoming a driver in the game was a huge move. Very refreshing. I agree. That was Derek Treese who said that. Boiler McD again says, I feel like that was a Ja Morant type of game for Jaden Ivey, I assume, and I agree. That's a good comparison. He's got kind of that. He's long, right? Long legs, long arms, strong, but has a good ability to beat people off the dribble. Very good at taking contact, though. I mean, that can't be discounted. That's my favorite thing about Jaden's game. Sarah J. Miller says, I could be wrong, but it seems like Coach Matt Painter has adjusted when teams peak. Seems like they used to be great early, then fade. I think Painter has changed in a lot of ways. And I think one of the ways he's changed is he hasn't been stuck in his ways to say, okay, this is what we do and this is it. I think he, number one, I don't know if you know this, Purdue has an analytics guy that's on the bench all the time. That's been a big deal for changing the way Painter thinks, the way he draws up plays. And another big thing, he started this with Coach Gary, that he really leans on his assistant coaches a lot, coming out of timeouts, coming out of bounds. And right now it's Coach Shrewsbury who's getting the ability to call the plays. Did C.J. Walker see enough sauce at the end of the game? Kevin Spry asks, and I think that's a very fair question. C.J. Walker, I'm not a big fan of him. Sounds like you're not either, Kevin. And I love seeing C.J. Walker lose games, and I really like seeing him lose against Purdue. That's a lot of fun. And I bet he saw a little bit of sauce. My guess is he may even have congratulated Jaden after the game, because that was too much sauce right there. I love the Ja comparison too. Damon Smith, another great point. This team's ability to fight back from a deficit and even win the game is such a difference from Purdue teams of the past. Now, here's the thing. I think Purdue teams have always been great at fighting. I think that's not been their problem. I think the problem lies in the ability to score, right? We've had Purdue teams that, have a set offense, like, with Haas there, and even with Hammonds, right? The whole offense went through the big man. But I have said this for years, and I said it when Carson arrived on campus. Purdue's ability to get over the hump and Painter's ability to crash through a ceiling came on the shoulders of Carson Edwards, right? And I'll say the next step, the way Painter and company get past this ceiling they're in, which is can they get to the Final Four, again, is going to come from a dynamic guard, a guy who score first type of guy. If you want, you can go back and look at my quick cast. I compare Ivey and Newman specifically to some of the great scorers, scoring guards in Purdue's history in the last 30 to, maybe 45 years, because I go back a little ways for a little deeper dive. But these guys' ability as a freshman to make big plays, to make like what we saw with Ivey. Ivey is not a shooter. We can reiterate that right now. I think he's going to be a great shooter, for the record. I think he's a guy that works hard enough that he's going to develop that. But I think right now he's not a great shooter. But he's a great basketball player, and he's a guy that makes plays. He's a scorer. Eric Hunter said that in the preseason. I think that was obvious tonight. He goes through contact, makes big plays, and the play at the end is just a guy making a play, a basketball play. Let's see. Derek Tree says, I would love watching Ohio State lose in general, whether in basketball or checkers. I like Ohio State, watching Ohio State lose at anything, agreed. And I really like watching Holtman lose. Little backstory, a little history. My son, LBD, was at Butler basketball camp, 2-3 years ago, when Holtman was still Butler's coach. And it was the Chris Holtman Butler basketball camp. And the camp is run really well. They have players there. They're there all the whole time. But Holtman never showed up, and he was supposed to be there, like doing individual stuff. And that was that weird. Remember, Holtman took the job in like June, and Holtman never showed up, and then ended up taking the Ohio State job at the end of that week when my son was at camp, at the Chris Holtman camp. And my brother is a Butler grad, and so I've always kind of liked Butler. Don't have any hard feelings against Butler, but Holtman, I didn't like the way that was handled. And I was kind of I don't want to say a front row spectator to watching Holtman leave, but it was the exact opposite. We weren't there at all. And I think my son wanted to meet Holtman, of course, didn't get a chance to. So anyway, great win for Purdue. And the schedule ahead, let's look at that real quick before I sign off. Schedule ahead, you've got a game up against Michigan. Let's see, and that's on the 22nd. It's in 3 days. Michigan is number 7 right now. And then there's a massive break, an 8-day break before they play Minnesota. I'm hoping, and I don't know if you guys know anything about this, you can post in the questions or comments. I'm hoping that they can get the Nebraska game rescheduled in that 8-day period, but who knows? I would like Purdue to get another game against a team that's lower in the conference just to pad that win total. They need that. Seems like the schedule has been especially difficult for a lot of reasons. All these road games are very hard. And then on top of that, the odd spacing and rhythm of the season has been difficult to deal with. But so they've got, this is one of those stretches. There are 2 or 3 in this Big Ten schedule where you play back-to-back-to-back ranked opponents. Number 15, Ohio State. Number 7, Michigan. Number 17, Minnesota. Then at Maryland, who Maryland wants some retribution. Northwestern, who was ranked 2 weeks ago, who's trying to find their feet because I think they've lost 4 straight now. And then Minnesota. Then Michigan State, who wants a piece of Purdue right now, I'm sure. Then you got Nebraska again, Penn State. Number 10, Wisconsin. And ending the season with the Hoosiers that nobody likes. Really nobody likes, let's be honest. Not even IU fans. I'm just kidding. Well, they don't this year. Honestly, IU fans don't like this IU team. But hopefully Purdue can handle their business, take that up to, a 2,000-day or something when it's all said and done by next basketball season, a 2,000-day drought for IU basketball over Purdue, and Purdue's 10th win, I think, in a row if Purdue beats IU again this season. That's about all I got for you. I appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate you going to the site, boiledsports.com. I'll probably repost this post-game just as a kind of a post-game. And like I said, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for going to the site. Thanks for hanging out with us on Twitter. And if I offended any of you guys by saying Jaden Ivey shouldn't be shooting threes, I'm so sorry. I'm not really sorry. Have a great evening. Hammer down. God bless you.